Hello there, Chris from preussenstudios here. Hoping everybody's been doing well. We've been doing good, taking care of a few things here and there. Getting organized, trying to get the website up and running. Should have that pretty soon. Anyway, today I want to talk to you about making a simple knife sheath. This is the first edition that we've actually done this on, because most of the patterns out there that people use are proprietary. They're their own creation or invention. So they're rather protective about different patterns that they use, especially one that sells, one that works very well. We're no different here. We like to definitely hold on to our patterns for sure. But we're going to talk about being able to turn something like this, just a plain sheet of leather, into something like this, a ready-to-go knife sheath. So, with that in mind, let's get started. By the way, this is a PS027. Olusti is the name of the product that we actually have, and the product number again is PS027 for anyone wishing to order it or order a pattern similar to it. All right. Now that you can see down here on the desk what I'm doing, and to make sure that you have a good, clear workway. These are some of the patterns that we use here. What I'm going to do is trace the pattern out. Now, when tracing a pattern out, you have to remember there's two sides to every pattern. This side and that side, right? This side is smooth, nice. Looks like the outside of a holster or sheath. This side has a rough edge to it, kind of like a very fine grit sandpaper. What you're looking at is the way that this thing is folded. This, when folded from the smooth side out, will actually become our knife sheath. Just like that. So what we want to do is make sure that we have the right side facing up. Just like this piece of leather. It's got a rough side and it's got a smooth side. So, for this to be a right-handed holster, which this one is, you'd place it this way. To make a left-handed holster, you'd simply flip it over and draw the pattern in reverse. And that puts the smooth side opposite. So what we're doing is making a right hand knife sheath, and we'll place the pattern simply over the top like this. Now you want to trace this as close as you can get it to the original pattern, so you try to keep it as close as you can. Don't be in any big hurry to draw the lines, because when you get in a hurry to draw the lines, you mess up. You want to make sure that you trace out the pattern the best that you can. Now, some people will use a clicker machine to cut these out. A clicker machine will cut them out in rapid succession. It cuts out hundreds of the same type of sheath. Some people argue that that's better. In a mass-produced area, that is better. But we're producing handmade products here, so we actually cut ours out by hand. This is what the pattern looks like afterwards, once we've traced it out. So what we do is take a very good pair of industrial scissors like these, and what I'll do is start cutting along the line. Now don't worry too much about the dark pin line that's on there, because that's going to come off in a few minutes. But you want to make sure that your cuts are even. And what I mean by even is exactly this. When you're cutting, you want to keep your scissors as straight as you can. If you're cutting like so, and cutting straight into the material, you're going to cut a straight line. Even at that, it'll still have a little bit of curvature, as you can see here, but not quite as much. If you cant your scissors to the left or to the right, it will cut an angle. And that angle can affect your pattern when you go to assemble it. So always be wary of that. You have to keep the scissors, while they're cutting, as straight as you possibly can, and follow the edge of that pattern carefully. Now this same principle works with knife sheaths. It works with holsters, and it'll pretty much work with any other type thing that you want. Just want to make sure you get that leather cut specifically right along that line. So you can see we're cutting along the line here, coming up on the back strap part of it. We don't want to leave any sharp edges, so we always try to round off our edges a little bit Give them a little bit of a clipping. As you can see, the pattern emerges here. When it's folded, this will be our shiny side, and this side will come out like this. Now once this is all stitched together, you'll actually have a functional knife sheath. What we need to do next is round the edges. And to round the edges, you take a little tool called a skive. Now there's several different sizes of these skives. These things right here actually cut the leather. You can see that little notch that's inside there. What that'll do is that'll trim the leather, just like this. And that trims off that line. It also gives it a nice round edge. Now, I've got several of these, like I said. They're different sizes, different thicknesses, different sharpness. Like this one here is one of the ones I just picked up. This is an important step in finishing your leather and giving it a professional look. If you don't do this, trust me, people will notice. You want to make sure that you trim all the edges all the way around. And not only on the outside, but you want to trim on the inside part too. And there's a reason for it. I'll explain it here in just a second, as soon as I get this thing trimmed out. You see what that looks like? Nice rounded edge. Inside here it's still squared. So at the very least, you want to make sure that you round off the part where the knife is going to go in, because you want a smooth transition. You want them to be able to push that knife in and bring it out for years to come. Next thing I usually do is smooth out where people are going to see it. And this is true for the back part of the belt loop, all the way down into the seam. Now when it's folded, the edges are rounded in the front and the back. Makes it look really nice. The next thing I usually do after this point is put my maker's mark on it. And for that, we usually don't put that on video. It's just a simple stamp, but you have to have it custom made. And where I put my maker's mark is a little bit different on every product. But this one, it'll be in this particular area right here. Not much to it. It's a simple mark that just goes into the back of it. But I'll have to show you that for another time. Anyway, this sheath is just about as done as finishing as it's going to be up to this point. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to coat the inside of this with a protectant. And what it's going to do is it's going to soak into the leather, and it's going to make it where when a knife actually slides in and out of this sheath for years and years, that wax will build into the leather and break in to where it conforms to it, which is what we want. We want the knife to sit there and be able to slide in and out of this knife sheath very, very easily for years to come. So for that we use a special type of wax that goes inside here. Usually we'll run a rivet through here. And the rivet going through here, well, on this side will be coated. Usually run a rivet through here, and then the stitch line down across here. Now most people are like, how do you get your stitch line straight? Well, there's a couple of ways to do that. One of the most important ways, using a tool that looks like this, right here. That's a line marker. And what that thing is going to do is it's actually going to etch a line into the leather. Now this one, I'm going to set it where, and you could adjust it. You just turn this little knob and you pull this little device back here, and it'll adjust the distance from here to here. This post right here is what you use to guide the leather along. And this is the blade that actually cuts. So what we're looking at is like this. And what it'll do is cut a little, just make a little tiny bead line, I guess you could say. They call it a stitch line. But it makes this little string. That's the part that comes out of the leather. And as you can see, it cuts a nice even line all the way down. That's what you're going to follow with your stitching machine. And you can do it more than once. You could do it a couple of times. Get a nice deep stitch line. Isn't really going to hurt it too much unless you cut all the way through the leather. But you want it to have a good straight line. That way people can see what a good job you did at stitching. Alright. The next thing we're going to do is poke a hole in it. And use a tool like this called a leather punch. The leather punch has different size holes down here. You could sit there and turn this little wheel and it selects different sizes along here. It's got a heavy brass plate in the bottom, and that's actually what you pinch the leather on, and that makes the hole. Now for this one, we know that the rivet's probably going to go through about right here. So it's literally that easy to punch the hole in it. Where you want to make sure that you get another hole is in the back. So what I'll usually do is mark that. So I got a mark in it, and I come in here with this leather punch, and I stab the hole through there. Sometimes you might get a little bit of hangover, but that's so that the holes will line up so that you can put a rivet through it. The rivets come in two pieces, a top and a bottom. So I can get you a good sample of one. This is what tops and bottoms look like. This is the top, this little device right there, and this is the bottom, that little device right there. The bottom and the top, the cap. So what you're going to do is stick the bottom on the inside where people usually can't see it, and then you're going to complete it by putting the cap on the outside. For those of you that missed what I did, I simply put the bottom piece through the hole, brought the belt loop down over the top of it, and then placed the cap over the top of that. Now of course it'll stay there, but it's not there permanently. To make it there permanently, you need a rivet setter. Now the rivet setter, usually give it about 4 or 5 good hits, and that will bend that metal on the inside of that rivet. Once that metal is bent, it'll flatten it out. And that's important because when the knife slides in and out of there, you want it below the leather line. But that is on there permanently from now on. So that when you close your sheath and you do your stitches, it'll come out looking fantastic. Of course, these are just the first steps. I will continue on with this in the next section of video. Uploading it, of course, I have to keep the video snippets short. But the next one we'll do the stitching, and we'll do some hand stitching for this one. We'll do some tapping of the holes inside of here, the stitch holes. I'll show you how to get nice even lines all the way through here, how to set another rivet in this. Of course, that's after we coat it and put our maker's mark on it. So, next video section, we'll be catching up.